When you're at the top of your career, having made the kinds of contributions you only dreamed of as a junior, is there much that a personal brand can add to your arsenal? This is exactly the situation my client Rubie was in when we met. Retired Justice of the Supreme Court of the Bahamas, practicing attorney for more than 55 years, law professor, and former Chancellor of the Anglican Church for the entire Caribbean, Rubie has had a distinguished career. What she didn't yet have was the language for what makes her approach singular, and with it, the confidence to take her work global. I'm Gabrielle Gweneth, Executive Brand Strategist. I use my background in anthropology and media to work with accomplished leaders and help them build the authority that shapes movements. This is Luminary Conversations, where I sit down with the leaders I've worked with to discuss what shifts, personally and professionally, when they develop their brands.
Thank you so much for inviting me to be with you today, Gabrielle. This is delightful. Gabrielle is one of my favorite people because I feel that her series on Luminaries is a very, very interesting production that caused me to do some deep thinking, but also has brought out the Rubie in me, if we can call it that. And I want to thank her for her patience and her wisdom in her youth to the elder part of me. So I'm delighted to be here. Name is Rubie Nottage, as I say. I'm a member of the Bar of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and a former judge of the Supreme Court of the Bahamas. I was called to the bar here in the Bahamas in 1969. And at that time, I was the fourth woman to be called to the bar. And now I think we have women advocates at the Supreme Court that number well beyond 100, 150. So I'm pleased to have been in that early stage.
One of the first.
Yes, one of the first. However, since being called, I've practiced at the Bahamas Bar, principally in family law, trusts, company law. I joined the firm of my husband, Kendall Nottage, when we married in 1970. And so I practiced with him both in Freeport and here in Nassau. In Freeport, I was privileged for a while, for 2 years, to be given the position of general counsel to the Grand Bahama Port Authority. That was a first for Bahamians, the very first Bahamian council, and first for a woman in the Bahamas. So I sat with the board of directors, Mr. Edward St. George and Mr. Jack Hayward, and the early days of their supervision of the Grand Bahama Port Authority. Kendall and I then moved to Nassau in the early 1970s. And we had our children, principally, one was born in Freeport, but the others were born here in Nassau. And I've practiced in Nassau since 1970. My field that I would like to specify as being my specialty tends to be now constitutional law, family law, and I'm very interested in arbitration, mediation, what we call alternate dispute resolution. So I have now spent over 55 years in practice, and I'm still going strong.
Yes. So when we met, we spoke mostly about your work in alternate dispute resolution. And Rubie has such an extensive career. She forgot to mention that she also works as a law professor, helping the newer generation of Bahamians learn how to practice law, and you pass on all of your expertise to them. And that also came up in our conversations, your unique perspective on what it means to have an attorney-client relationship. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But when you met me, what was it that you were thinking that you might want to do with your brand? What is it that you were feeling challenged by before you started with Luminary?
Well, I think as I began to speak with you about the sessions, I really wondered what was Luminary going to be able to do with me after so many years of practice and hardcore brand, as far as I was concerned, to discover a brand. And this was very interesting because Gabrielle was able to, as it were, take what was a hard nut and cracked it so that I could begin to explore some of the more interesting things that I had perhaps felt were not relevant. And she's allowed me to expose them to further investigation, such as I am a teacher as well, a lecturer at the University of the Bahamas. I lecture in law, and I've done that for about 20 years now. And I enjoy sharing with my students some of the interesting aspects that I've had as a practitioner of law and not just an academic. And I find that I'm often bringing before them life lessons, as it were, on how to deal with the human spirit. And this is where I think I found my discussions with young students exploring my own spirituality in that sense of relationship one to another. What is one's real purpose in life? And I'd never stopped to think about that until Gabrielle, in her Luminary series, started to sort of really begin to plumb what my brand was and how could I further explore my brand of advising and of counseling, which I feel is an aspect of my teaching and my lecturing at this particular moment.
Yeah. So what motivated you to want to explore personal branding in the first place?
I wanted to be more visible on the international scene for my capabilities and my real talent that I think I have, that I know I have, in alternate dispute resolution, particularly adjudication, arbitration, and dispute resolution in the sense of mediation. These are aspects that I believe the Bahamas can become a center of resolution. And it takes one, the requirement is there for one to have a brand and to have a brand that speaks well of your competence and also exposes you to further networking with those who are leaders in this field. And so my desire to, as it were, finesse the brand that I thought I had and which you now have explored and have shown me that I definitely can explore, the desire was to broaden that brand in an international field, particularly within the Caribbean.
Yes.
And as a person of the Caribbean and a female, I felt that it was important to show the brand as a person who is not necessarily male and not necessarily of a European extraction.
Yes.
So branding is always very sensitive to these particular aspects, which I felt I embody.
Yes, yes. So you are very highly esteemed locally, very well known.
Thank
As
you.
you said in the beginning, one of the very first women Bahamian lawyers and the very first, is it counsel or of counsel?
Well, we usually say counsel.
Okay. In the Bahamas, and you are looking global. You are looking global.
Yes.
So that's one of the things that I love about working with you, Rubie, is just being inspired by how you're always looking to what more you can, to what else there is that you can contribute. You've said that to me so many times in our meetings together. You're like, I know that there's more.
Yes.
And I feel that I want to share more of what I've learned. And so that's what we really focused on, is how do you translate your experiences and your perspective so that people in an international audience can look to you and have the same understanding as people do locally automatically. Like,
That's
oh yeah,
right.
we know you and we
Yes.
trust you. We were trying to shorten the timeline and also raise your visibility. Shorten the
That's
trust
right.
timeline, raise your visibility.
Trust is important. It's an
Yes.
important word in any venture, especially a brand, but particularly in dispute resolution. People who are potential clients or potential partners want to know that they can trust you. But more than that, it goes even deeper into this element of sensitivity to the spirit of man that seeks resolution often. And I spoke with you about the fact that with my students, I often tell my law students that one has to be very aware of the fact that in each challenge that comes before you to resolve a legal problem, there's a human being who needs to have you recognize how very fragile they are, but how very special their relationship is with you as their counsel, because they're going to open up and tell you a lot of things that they would not want anybody else to know.
No. Yeah.
And so you must respect that. You're, as it were, on hallowed ground. I know I'm using very sensitive words, but I always stress the fact that we tread on holy ground when we interact with the people along the lines of their trust and along the lines of their wanting to allow you into that very special place where they're so vulnerable, to let you know their secrets, as it were, or their secret weaknesses. And so that's an element that I think I would like to bring to the international arena as well, to allow those people who interact with me or the clients that I serve to see that there is a basis here of true concern for their humanity and for the challenges that they may be meeting, in the fact and hope that a resolution can occur if one walks in trust and trust.
And that actually touches on something else that came up in our conversations, and another area of Rubie's specialty and expertise, which is canon law. Because you have very significant relationships with some of the religious leaders locally, the Christian leaders, and have specialized in understanding how, is it particularly Anglican law works? And so that also informs everything that you bring to your practice.
That's right.
Everything that you bring to your teaching and to the law and to your mediation, your arbitration work.
That's right.
So through our one-on-one time together, we started with uncovering your message, and then we looked into distilling that into a singular message, and we also looked at your signature intellectual property and what sets your work apart from other people's brands or other people's alternate dispute resolution approach. And was there anything about our journey together that surprised you, or any particular moment that stood out?
Well, I think that one of the surprises was the manner in which you allowed me to express what I've always felt to be the important part of my combination of law and spirituality, and that's a respect for the better part of us. I call it my better part, my better self. And it's made up of an amalgam of my studies in theology and my association, as you've mentioned, with the Anglican Church here in the Caribbean, of which I was a chancellor, a legal advisor. But my studies in theology caused me to realize that we're called as human beings to not just present what the busyness of life produces and the academics and the sort of hard intellectualism that many of us have as teachers and as professors, but we're called to present the better self. Often there is a problem that will arise, complex it may be. It may involve a number of parties who are feuding, and yet the better self must be brought out in resolving whatever the challenge is, be it contractual, be it a construction matter, or be it an inter-party personal matter. So you have helped me to see that my desire to explore that better part, or that self that is within all of us, and to call on the persons with whom I interact to truly explore that interaction with their better self towards the resolution of many of our problems. I think it has validity. I've been working now to perfect that brand of approach, as it were. It surprises people, and so they sit back and listen for a change, rather than always wanting to tell me what they want. They will sit and listen to my desire to have them explore their better self.
Yes.
So that's a branding.
Oh, yes.
That you brought forth.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought it up. I was hoping that you would say, because that was the framework that we came up with, your better framework.
That's
and
right.
It has two branches. So there's the better self, the individual.
That's right.
And then the better way, which is how you refer to arbitration.
Arbitration.
Yes.
That's right. And so you see, I have a convert already. But yes, you know, there's a story in the Bible of Mary and Martha, and Jesus comes to visit them. And Martha is the housekeeper. She's busy preparing, getting the meal and the food ready. She knows that the house has to be perfect. But Mary does the better part, Jesus says, or takes the better way. And she sits at Jesus' feet and communes with him. We don't hear that it's teaching necessarily, but it's a realization of a communion between the two selves that really matters. And the answer that's given to Mary is, you have chosen the better part.
Yes.
And I like that because, again, it brings a possibility to every interperson relationship that can look for resolution if we would only take the time to explore that better self or better part. That adjudication will bring about, or arbitration. In its hard encasement, it is a process, and it involves a legal reasoning, but there is a better part in it. And I like to explore that as, I call it, the art of arbitration. And it surprises people when I speak to my fellow arbitrators and I say, there's an art to arbitration. Because as an arbitrator, you have the power to bring two feuding parties together. And through the process of the regulation that allows every part to be heard, natural justice must apply. Through those legal frameworks, the better part will be brought forward as an art form. So that's my working that you have explored or allowed me to find in myself and to explore now even more. It's really an amazing way, I think, to bring about a healing in a field that I love and in a way that I feel I'm particularly suited to.
It was really wonderful to uncover that with you, to go through the process and to watch how much you're, you know, when you think about a lawyer or you think about anyone involved, a judge especially, that's an even heavier title, anyone involved in the legal profession, the stereotypes are just that it's just hard. Like you were saying, there's this shell, and then there's this, you know, someone wins and someone loses, or there's absolutes, black and white, and then you bring such a sense of beauty, your consideration of the human spirit and wanting people to feel that they've been heard and understood. And then also just a sense of reality that comes with your arbitration, because you've said to me many times about how you have to make a choice. You have to make a decision to be the better self. You have to make a choice to pursue the better way. And so there's all this depth that is involved in your work and your practice that we were able to explore together. And it was just so wonderful.
And that's an amazing aspect of branding. You see, to me, I would have just swept branding to the side and said, no, I don't really see how that is involved. But you've shown me that in the branding of myself and my approach, I bring a special quality with this aspect that will be a part and is a part of my quote brand.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. So was there anything else that felt interesting, or was there a moment when you felt seen or understood in a way that you hadn't before in the course of our conversations?
I think that you generally, and I must speak about and praise your youth as well as your patience and ability to allow the real self to emerge. You quietly, through our sessions, talked and allowed me to express very honestly how I felt. And I think that was a wonderful way to bring out the best part in me. But also I found that your interaction with other clients of yours, that we would sit and meet other people who are a part of your knowledge base and share on a topic. Just explore the topic. Now, I would then find that you had prepared me to think about approaching that topic or the other person's from my perspective. Whereas before I might have just gone along with the conversation and not allowed my brand core value to be heard. I think you allowed me to feel confident enough that there was value in the brand. And no matter what the topic, it doesn't have to be law. It could be something else that arises within other person relationship, that I can turn my brand to be relevant. I think that's the sort of real discovery that you allowed me, in addition to finding myself, but to find the versatility of the brand. And the versatility you practiced and allowed me to practice with others. That was very important.
That's so exciting. I'm so glad to hear that. So what else feels different now that we are on the other side?
Well, I think what now is exciting is beginning to explore new avenues. You've introduced me to a way in which LinkedIn can be explored, or just other relationships and interactions. I have found that I've been following a number of very interesting other persons and other pursuits, other topics. So what is now there? I think the world opens up. I'm going to be participating in a dispute resolution presentation soon, which deals with states, the resolution of disputes between states. And I've been invited to moderate a panel, and that will be interesting. That's in June. That will be interesting because in moderating the panel, I have prepared some of my presentation and my calling on the participants in such a way that I think my brand will begin to show forth.
Absolutely.
And so what is in the future? Wow. Internationalism, perhaps. And hopefully an exposure of myself with confidence.
Yes.
And with the self-assurance that I have that value and I have that knowledge that no matter my age, and I only mention age here the first time.
This is the first time.
Right,
Yeah.
because I want everybody to see that brand does not have an age limit. It is limitless. It is really one in which the personality becomes absolutely expandable and without limits.
Yes.
And that's what you've taught me.
Oh, thank you, Rubie.
Yes. I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of what you've done in my life.
Oh,
thank
you.
Yes.
It's been a privilege.
Well,
has there been anything else that's changed in the way that you've shown up that you've noticed or that other people have commented to you?
Well, I think that the principal thing has been my willingness to be a little more outspoken and not. I've never been shy, but I'm from a generation that is very respectful, and I want to say this in this manner. What has changed? I find now that women who sit at the table, the discussion table or the decision table, are often super qualified, but they're very humbled and slow to offer their opinions first. They will sit or we as women will sit and hear the whole table before perhaps we offer our opinion. I'm becoming a little more exerted now and assured that my opinion should be placed on the table just as soon as possible, and so that it has value and the opportunity to be debated by all persons at the table, and not after somebody has presented their position. And so what has come about now, I think, is that having a brand enables me to be at the table, to be recognized as a brand at that table, female, with knowledge, and with an aspect towards the resolution that will be recognized from the very first moment everyone arrives at the table. My brand will be known.
Yes.
And my brand will therefore have consideration. It will come as a surprise to anyone.
Yes.
And it will be there for the appreciation of the total problem.
Yes.
So that's a new aspect of emboldenment, if I can use the word like emboldenment, of emboldening me to be present at the discussion table from the beginning.
Yes.
And not reticent that perhaps I shouldn't speak now, or perhaps I should wait until all the men have spoken. Often at the table you will find, and this is not to say that all women are like this, but it is to say that often the woman who is capable of contributing will step back a little, as it were, before offering her input. And that is not the best way to offer your contribution, because you sit as a personality with a particular perspective that has to be taken into consideration in the total mix, and not after the mix.
Not after everything.
Not after the decision has been made and then you're a gloss on it.
Yes.
I think that this is that emboldenment that is now mine and makes me feel more comfortable that my brand is visible in the person that I am.
Yes.
And not to be discovered by someone saying, oh, yes, yes, she is so-and-so. They will know from statement one that this is who I am.
Yes.
And so the respect, I think, can then be gained. The trust can then start to evolve.
Yes.
Because people know where you're coming from.
Yes.
And they're comfortable that you are there in your territory to do your work and nothing else.
Yes.
So that's a wonderful feeling, a wonderful freedom, which doesn't allow exploration into irrelevancies. You deal with what is important within your scope.
Exactly.
And people know that they are to expect that
Yes.
from you.
Yes. So that's actually conversations that we had at the beginning.
Yes.
Because you have such a broad expertise and such an, we didn't touch on any of the personal, but Rubie's lived all over. She's traveled all over.
Yes.
She's done so much. And so the question for a lot of people in the beginning is like, how do I narrow it all down? What really makes sense? Where do I focus? What do I need to make sure I bring to the table?
Yes.
And so for you, we discovered, it's the better framework.
That's right.
And the mission behind that, you wanting everyone to be respected and our mutual humanity being so important, a key part of your work.
That's right.
So as you were talking, I was also thinking about the speaking engagements that you were offered
early
on. Well, relatively, maybe about halfway through. I can't quite remember. When we were working together and you told me how you'd said yes to taking them where you wouldn't have before.
That's right.
So the transformation, if I could use that word, was happening from the very beginning as we started.
Right.
So
the hesitation isn't there.
Yes.
As it was before. Well, maybe I'll say yes and take this on. It's no, I'm going to show up.
Yes.
At every opportunity there is to be myself.
Yes.
And to participate in the way in which could really mean that I bring that value to the table. And it should not be left to just chance.
Yes.
It has to be asserted.
Exactly.
And that assertiveness is, I think, what we've spoken about.
Yeah.
That it comes forth now as a, yes, I'll do that, or yes, I'll meet with you, or of course I'd be delighted, that sort of thing.
Yes. So that more people, so that your mission spreads further.
That's right.
You've mentioned to me as well about students coming back to you years later and telling you about how your lessons about attorney-client relationships have been so helpful and your perspective, your better framework helping them. And this way, more people can learn that and apply that to themselves or pursue arbitration or alternate dispute resolution as they'd like. Yeah.
Yes. And I think we can be seen, if we can speak about international prospects, we in the Caribbean or from the Bahamas particularly can be seen as a place where this approach is developed, where this approach is possible. We have a wonderful God-given environment, natural environment, plus the fact that trained personnel are there to expertly handle a particular situation. I think we can make the Bahamas a center for dispute resolution that has a quality to it.
Yes.
It's not just a procedure.
Right.
It has a total environmental and, as it were, elemental quality, essential quality.
Yes.
That the people are always wonderful in the Bahamas. Everyone says that.
Yes.
But now we add another dimension to it in that this is the place where perhaps dispute resolution or resolution of states, parties can take place and can be very much recognized as that safe haven, as it were, for so many of the problems that confront not only individuals, companies, but also states.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's going to happen.
Helm.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much.
You have the vision.
Thank you. That is the vision.
Yes. So when you think about this personal branding work that we've done together, the one-on-one process that we went through, who do you think it would be valuable for?
Well, I think that, you mean the branding itself. I think the persons, male, female, who are both young and older, I think it would definitely be valuable for members of the judiciary. But I would like to take more than just the judiciary here in the Bahamas or other places. I think it would be very valuable for persons who are moving out into the arena of interpersonal relationships of any sort, be it in companies, those who lead companies, international or local. I think that anybody who sits around a table of discussion, of course, one immediately thinks of politicians. So I think that there are many political people who could use it. But also, I was looking at one or two of the CEOs of in our Bahamas, heading some of our larger corporations, water, electricity, etc. I think there are persons in those capacities who would really benefit from having a brand, because the brand element will spread into that corporate grouping.
Yes.
So that the corporate grouping that is serving the public
Yes.
will have a feel
Yes.
of this brand
Yes.
that is being led by.
The culture.
The culture is
Yes.
being led by.
Yes.
So more people will trust and find confidence in the community organizations that control them, the water and sewerage, the electricity, etc. All of those need that brand leader who gives the aspect of confidence,
Yes.
trust, and completion. You know, that you are capable of completing this job, and that the company, therefore, is in good hands.
Yes.
So that's where I'd like to be,
Yeah.
and I'd like to see.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I keep saying thank you to you, but I know that there's so much that your particular sessions can benefit many young people and older people. And so I sit as a person who has that knowledge, but yet didn't have that refinement. And the refinement has been invaluable.
Oh,
So that's where your value will be.
thank you.
Thank you so
It's
much.
such a pleasure.
Good, my pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you again.